Patchwork Heart Ministry and Fiat Ministry Network invite you to discover your mission. A brand new in-depth monthly video series featuring engaging Catholic speakers who will challenge you to live your life abundantly. For only $25 a month, you will receive a personal monthly mission, including 3 full-length inspirational talks that build upon a new theme each month. Sign up for the Discover Your Mission tier at patreon.com/Patchwork Heart Ministry today.
Welcome to the Sowing Hope podcast. This is a show all about implanting hope in our hearts. I'm Bill Snyder, joined by my friend Ann DeSantis. We're glad you're here for our uplifting conversation about faith and how it sustains our hearts through all the seasons of life. Thanks for walking with us. And good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Sowing Hope podcast. I am Bill Snyder, as I just said, and I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Ann DeSantis. It's a beautiful morning here in Wisconsin, and we're so excited to be with you. Ann, how are you this morning?
Oh, I'm great, Bill. Thanks so much.
Of course. It's another nice morning here, and we're so excited because we have a great guest. Why don't you tell us about him?
Yes, we have an amazing guest, and he's a returning guest, too. So we have Patrick Novecosky. I'm going to read his short bio. He is one of America's most accomplished Catholic communicators. He's the author of 100 Ways John Paul II Changed the World, and has won more than 24 awards from the Catholic Press Association. He has edited and written for some of America's top publications and has been published in 5 languages. Patrick serves as the executive director of the Warrenton Pregnancy Center in Warrenton, Virginia. He's the founder of Nova Media, a public relations firm specializing in the Catholic space. He's previously served as Legatus Magazine's editor-in-chief for 12 years. He's traveled to 26 countries, met Pope St. John Paul II 5 times, and made Pope Francis laugh out loud. Most importantly, he is a husband and a father of 5 beautiful children. Welcome and good morning, Patrick.
Great to be with you both again.
Yeah, it's great to have you. And what a timely topic to talk about this wonderful book, 101 Ways St. John Paul Changed the World. It's just incredible. We're coming up on his anniversary, or it's a feast day and anniversary too, right?
Absolutely, yes. So Thursday is his feast day and the 42nd anniversary of his inauguration as Pope. He was elected on October 16th, 1978. And on the 22nd, he became, I believe, the 264th successor of Peter. It's funny because people say, well, this is a number that he's, I think, the 264th Pope and the 263rd successor of Peter. So you have to be careful how you parse that, because one number is right, but it's not right for both. So got to count Peter in the 264, right? And then the number of successors following that. So I try to keep that on the tip of my tongue.
Yeah, that's got to be difficult, you know?
Yeah. What an interesting study that you have done of John Paul II. I mean, he's one of my favorites, and I know he's one of Bill's, and probably so many of our listeners love St. John Paul II. I want to invite people also to learn more about you and what you're doing at your 2 websites, which you have booksbypatrick.com and also catholicpublicist.com. So please do check out those 2 websites. Now, you were on our show before, and you did tell us about yourself and your story. I definitely want to ask people to please go back and listen to that full episode, because there's so much information about your story. But maybe a little bit about yourself to those who don't know you yet, Patrick. It'd be great for them to learn about you.
Yeah, sure. I grew up in Saskatchewan, Canada, in a family of 9 children on a farm. And when I was 16, John Paul II came to Canada for the first time. And I had this truly profound dream that he came to my house and gave me a hug. Now, I tell the story in talks, and about 1 out of every 10 times I tell this story, someone in the crowd in the Q&A will say, I had the same dream. And last weekend, I was doing a radio interview, and the host had the same dream. So part of John Paul II's mysticism, which we can get into, but I lived in Canada for the first 28 years of my life, came to the United States to work for a Catholic magazine in California, was there for a year, and then bounced over to the Marian Fathers in Stockbridge, Massachusetts at the National Shrine of the Divine Mercy. And that was kind of my I guess, entree into the world of global Catholicism, the Universal Church. In 1997, I had a chance to go to Rome, and the Marians allowed me the great opportunity to meet John Paul II for the first time. And then I toured Eastern Europe, because John Paul II had told the Marians, "I want you to lead the re-evangelization of Eastern Europe." No small task. I mean, this is in the mid 90s. The Iron Curtain had fallen, between 89 and 91. In 91 is when Ukraine got its liberation, in Poland and all of those Eastern Bloc countries. So I went behind the Iron Curtain, and I interviewed priests that had survived during the Soviet era, and they told me their stories and their needs. And I came back and I told those stories, and it was so successful for fundraising and information that the next year the Marian sent me back again, 98, 99, 2000. I met the Pope each year, and then I was getting into my early 30s, and I knew that God was calling me to a vocation of marriage, and met this beautiful woman from Michigan, and moved to Michigan, got married in 2001. And I became the first communications director at Ave Maria School of Law when it was still in Michigan. It's since moved to Florida. Was there for a couple of years, and then that's when I got connected with Legatus. Legatus is a membership organization of Catholic business leaders, and they moved us to Florida. So we lived in Southwest Florida, and in the town of Ave Maria. We were down there 15 years. And then I had this opportunity to move to Northern Virginia just a few months ago to lead the Warrenton Pregnancy Center in Northern Virginia. So that's kind of a bit of my journey. I have 5 children, and my wife is a Catholic school teacher. Children are between 6 and 17. I've got 3 teenagers in the house, so it's a new era.
I understand that one. Mine are out of the teenage years, but I understand that well.
Yes.
That's awesome. And then you're doing amazing work right now at the Warrenton Pregnancy Center. I know in our last episode, you talked a lot about that. So tell us more about the Warrenton Pregnancy Center and your role as the executive director.
Yeah, so the center is very new. It was founded just 3 years ago, opened about 2.5 years ago here in Warrenton. Warrenton's a town of about 10,000 people. It's about an hour outside of DC. For those of you that know Northern Virginia geography, if you go west from DC, you'll hit towns like, well, Dulles Airport, and then Centerville and Gainesville and Manassas. We're just a little bit south of Gainesville, Manassas area. So they saw the need. There was a center here. It folded. They saw the need, and a lot of like-minded pro-lifers got together and said, we need to serve the women of our area. And we border several counties in Northern Virginia, so we're drawing from a pretty rural area, but and a very conservative area as well, politically, and a lot of churches. So it's a neat area to be serving people. I've literally found no resistance in the community to the work that we do here. Our biggest challenge is letting people know that we exist and what we do. We offer free pregnancy tests, free ultrasounds, material support for women with young children, and women who are in a pregnancy. We offer counseling for both women and men who are abortion minded. And then continuing support, whether we have some women, unfortunately, who don't choose life for their child, but we don't push them away. We try to draw them in and help them with the loss recovery that they'll be going through, and continue to walk with them and doing our best to convince them to make good choices. And one of my biggest jobs is to rally prayer support for what we do here. And I really see, as the leader of a center, I've got amazing volunteers. The volunteers they're passionate, they're well educated, they want more training. They're eager to step in whenever there's a need, and that's half the battle right there. So great blessing. So I see my role as letting people know that we exist in the local community, and rallying that type of knowledge, which will help draw abortion-minded women in need, and it helps draw volunteers. It also helps with the fundraising, because we need the financial help to keep the place going as well, and the material support. All of our services are free, so we live on donations and prayer.
Amazing
wonderful work that you're doing. What is the website there for the Warrenton Pregnancy Center?
Well, if you can spell it all, it's warrentonpregnancycenter.org.
Okay.
However, I do have a shortcut. It's wpc.life. Before I started here, I didn't know that .life was a thing, but it is. So it's WPC for Warrenton Pregnancy Center, WPC.life.
Well, that's nice and easy.
Yeah.
So no matter where people are coming from on this podcast and listening, they might want to partner with you somehow and make a donation, either a one-time or a recurring, because you know what? There's never been a time that's needed so much. I want to tell people that. Yeah, that's never been a time. So
for people that are looking to support us, we have a separate site, and that's WPCpartners.org. So I'd encourage them to go to that. Yeah, for the women who are abortion-minded, who are in need of support, that's WPC. But getting my tongue tied, WPC.life. For the donations and support, it's WPCpartners.org.
Awesome stuff. Yeah, we're and I'm excited to talk with you about life too, because John Paul II was such a huge proponent of life. I mean, he was probably the preeminent person for promoting life and the sanctity of life, with the whole theology of the body too.
Yeah, no question. And that really started from his life as a young priest. One of his first assignments was to counsel and mentor young people. He was a young priest. He was in his 20s and 30s, and at the parish he was kind of the youth pastor. So he kind of learned a lot from that experience that he incorporated into his theology and his studies. But it also formed his pastor's heart. So he walked with these young people. He saw them fall in love and get married and have children and start their families. And in 1960, he published a book called Love and Responsibility. And that was kind of the precursor to the theology of the body. But everything that John Paul II wrote kind of hinged on who is man? Who is the human person? What is the human person? And what's his relationship with God and with each other? He taught that each person is unique, a unique individual, but an unrepeatable human life. Whether that life ends within 2 minutes of conception, or whether that person lives to be 110 years old, unique, individual, unrepeatable, and a gift from God to the world. So everything hinged on the human person, right? And so the respect due each individual human person was key to all of his theology, whether that was World Youth Day or theology of the body, and that was kind of a core teaching for him.
Yeah, thank you so much. I have to tell people that I've actually purchased 100 Ways John Paul II Changed the World. And I'm excited to start reading it because, as I told you both, Bill and Patrick, I'm working on my master's thesis, and it's going to be part of it using that resource. So I just recommend it's on Kindle too.
Kindle and in hard copy. You can get it on Amazon. Our Sunday Visitor is my publisher, but most Catholic bookstores have it. You can get it at Barnes and Noble. It's everywhere right now, so it's very exciting.
Yeah, it really is. So, what was it like for you writing the book? Because there's so much there. I started to look through it, and I'm just so excited to really delve in.
Yeah, the whole thing started with with my opportunity to meet him 5 times. So three of my meetings with him were actually in person, right beside him, talking to him in a private audience, two at Castel Gandolfo, one at the Papal Apartments. And typically what I would do is I was the webmaster at Marian.org. So I was presenting him with pages that I'd printed out on Divine Mercy, particularly, and the things that he had done with spreading Divine Mercy, with regard to Saint Faustina and Mercy Sunday, and so that was the three meetings, and then two of them were in the square. One was with my wife. We were newlyweds, and we went to Rome for our honeymoon, and we knelt at his feet, and he blessed us. And so that having those experiences with him and looking into his eyes and having the opportunity to speak to him was very formative. Along with that dream I had when I was 16 years old. Um, and then he died, and I went into my career as a journalist and continued that path. But about a year and a half ago, I realized that his 100th birthday was coming up in May of 2020, and I knew that I had a book in me, and I needed to get started. And so I chose this project because I wanted to have it timed with his 100th birthday. COVID kind of delayed that, but here we are. We're still within the 100th year of his life. And so I'd been giving this talk for probably 10 years on how I met him, what that experience was like, but it needed a little bit more meat to it. So I developed this top 10 list, the top 10 ways John Paul II impacted the world. And I would count them down as part of my talk. And so that was kind of the start. And then when I started this book, I grew that list to 20, then 30, then about 50. Once I got to 60, I started writing. And as I was researching and reading and writing, that list doubled. So I had, 130, 140 ways, and I had to start paring it down. So I kind of tried to write it so that the first 90, from 100 to 11 are not necessarily in order of importance, but they kind of run as a theme, whether that theme is diplomacy, whether that theme is theology, or whether that theme is the saints that he knew or canonized, or because he knew Mother Teresa, he knew Fulton Sheen, he knew Padre Pio, and he didn't meet, but he had a strong kinship with Maximilian Kolbe, and so I kind of grouped things and made a theme running through the whole book, and then I count down the top 10. So the top 10 that I'd been giving in my talks for years and years, those are the same as I had prior to starting the book.
Wow, it's awesome. Thank you so much. And I know there's good things coming too. That probably isn't the last book you're going to write. I have a feeling.
Yeah. So I didn't meet Pope Benedict, but I'm working on my next book, which will be 100 Ways Pope Benedict Changed the World. And he's 93, so I need to have this out before his 100th birthday to celebrate that. But hopefully, have it out before he passes into heaven.
Oh, that's something to look forward to. I love Pope Benedict.
Yeah. I did get within 10 feet of him at Amman Stadium in Amman, Jordan in 2009.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it's amazing. Talk about just meeting popes. I mean, there's something very special about that. I've been to a couple general audiences. I went to one general audience with Pope Emeritus Benedict, and then I was at the World Meeting of Families with Pope Francis just a few years ago in Philadelphia. But talk about, if in your experience, just I mean, obviously you've had the private audiences with John Paul II, but just being in the crowd or in the presence of the successor of Peter, there's something special about that, and it's something that I think almost every Catholic should experience. Not everybody's going to have the red carpet access, but just being able to go to an event or go to St. Peter's Square and encounter the the Pope in a general audience. There's something special about that, right? There's something that is
Absolutely.
yeah. Just talk about that from your own experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll never forget the moment that I landed at the Rome airport for the first time, and the car that was driving me to the house passed by St. Peter's Square. This is 1997, and it was like just pure joy just to see it, because we grow up seeing the square in pictures and in video, and then there's a new pope elected, we see the smoke, but like, where is that building, and how what's the square look like for real? But just driving by it in a car, that moment is forever and etched into my mind. And well, let me tell you what it was like to meet him. We got a call the day before saying that there was a seat. So take a step back. John Paul II would have a mass every morning in his private chapel, whether it was at the Vatican or at Castel Gandolfo, the summer residence for the popes. And if you were a bishop in Rome or a priest and you wanted to celebrate that morning mass, you could call ahead and take one of those 35 seats in his little chapel. And if you were a lay person and there was a seat and you're on the list, and thanks to the Marians, I was able to get on the list, and there's a seat open, they'll call you the night before. So we got a call on September 30th, 1997, and I'd been praying to Saint Therese to intercede for me, because she went to Rome, she met the Pope, so I was pouring out my heart in prayer, and just happened to meet John Paul II for the first time on her feast day. And it didn't occur to me till about a month later that the last day of September 1997 was 100 years to the day that she died. So she answered the prayer on the centenary of her entry into heaven. And I met him on her feast day. So she's always been very close to my heart before that. But so it always made me think, this opportunity to meet this great saint, and I knew he was a saint before I met him, was not just for me, but it was for my ministry, for my family, for my children, for everyone that I can tell the story. Not something I want to keep under a bushel basket. So, and again, that was part of the impetus to write the book.
That's a gift to all of us. That's a gift.
Yeah, absolutely. So meeting him. So we came in, we were greeted by Bishop Jewish, who's now Cardinal Jewish, Cardinal of Krakow. And he led us into the Pope's chapel, and John Paul II was kneeling in prayer in front of the tabernacle. So I came around the corner and saw him with my own eyes, and my heart literally leapt in my chest. It was, I'm not a mystic, but if there's anything like ecstasy, not the drug, but being, having the spiritual experience, that was it for me. I mean, and the entire mass, I stared at him. I hope he didn't think that was kind of weird, but I wanted to memorize every single second. He didn't read the gospel. He didn't give us a homily. He didn't distribute communion, but he was there, and I received Holy Communion that was consecrated by the Holy Father. And the Mass was only maybe 20 minutes. And then they let us out into an adjoining room. Now, there were about 25, 30 people that were there. We kind of formed a horseshoe pattern, and he came to each one of us. I was the only one of those 30 people that actually had a gift for him. So I'm standing there waiting for him, because they had to disrobe and get him, over to meet us. And I was a little nervous, because I had this whole little speech planned out, and tell him who I am and what I'm showing him. And as soon as he entered the room, all that anxiety was just gone. It was like us standing next to my dad, saying, "Hey, Dad, this is what I did. This is my work. What do you think?" And it was so easy. It was like, I had this euphoric moment and mass with the Holy Father, and then this, just standing next to him for 60 seconds, telling him my work, and it's like, it was very easy. And then he said, thank you. He pressed a rosary into my hand, went to the next person. And a year later, I was back and doing the same thing. And it was just very, very comfortable. But there certainly is a presence around the Holy Father. I also met Pope Benedict, and that was a different type of atmosphere, different type of feeling. But I was also in Rome, and when Pope Francis stepped out onto the loggia for the very first time, I was me and a couple other reporters. We were the closest lay people to the Pope when he stepped out. They had the first half of the square underneath the facade was blocked off. And so the crowd was all in the back half of the square. I was up on top of the colonnade, about eye level with the Pope, and I was about maybe 25, 30 yards away. So everybody else on the floor, on the ground, was probably 50, 60 yards away. And that was an experience. It was very different than John Paul II. But at the same time, it was very clear that this was a different type of Pope than we had with Benedict and Pope Francis. And, I'm not going to be a detractor of Pope Francis. He has enough critics. I don't need to jump into the fray. But I have to say that the last 100 years, we've been very spoiled. We've had incredibly brilliant men as Pope. We've had very holy men as Pope. And prior to that, it's kind of been hit and miss. We've had great popes. We've had not so great popes. And, Francis is just a different type of Pope than what we're used to. So, that's it. But meeting him was truly a blessing. I was in Rome, part of a delegation that was there to meet him, and I was also in Rome to run the marathon. I'm a marathon runner, so this was my second running of the Rome Marathon. And so I could see people in front of me, and they're kissing his hand and they're praising him. And I know Francis doesn't really get off on that, so I wanted to say something different. So I got up to him, I held his hand, I said, Holy Father, on Sunday I'm running the Rome Marathon. And then I waited a second because his English isn't so good. But when I could tell by looking into his eyes that he understood what I meant, I said, please pray for me. Just like that. And Cardinal Wuerl of Washington, D.C. had introduced us, and he burst out laughing. And then the Pope laughed out loud. And then the Pope says, I do. So the Pope said he would pray for me.
I can see that.
Yeah, I do. And I ended up running my fastest marathon of my life. So yeah, the Pope's prayers kind of spurred me on, I guess.
That's awesome.
Oh, praise God.
Yeah.
That's a great story. I know you wrote that in your little biography that you made him laugh out loud. So
yeah,
that's a good one.
And
love to hear all these
bucket list,
stories.
right?
Yeah, bucket list for sure.
That's on one of my bucket list. I do want to meet Pope Francis. I have to
make him laugh.
Yeah.
And make him laugh. Yeah.
Yes. Pray for me. I have another friend who's been on the podcast. In fact, she was with us last week, Jacqueline. In case Jacqueline's listening, Jacqueline and I have talked about that idea of praying that we can meet the Holy Father. So who knows, right? You lift up that prayer, you just don't know what'll happen.
Yeah, there are many graces attached to meeting the Pope, and I feel that in my life, and just having the honor to tell the story and share that with people is a great joy for me.
For
really
certain.
Is.
Yeah, one of the things you mentioned in there in your talking just in the last few minutes was that we had a lot of different styles of popes previously, and then we had two powerhouse popes, if you want to put it that way, with John Paul II, Pope Benedict the 16th, and the contrast to Francis, which is so interesting, and a pope for these times. But I wonder if you had any comments on just how long, because like growing up until I hit college, like Pope John Paul II was the Pope from when I was born until my sophomore year of college. And so, that he had his pontificate for such a long time that we grew accustomed to his leadership. And then of course, he passes away. We have a historic resignation of a pope that hasn't happened in church history in over 600 years.
600 years.
Yeah, and now we have so I wonder if any comments on just on that, on just the historic times we're living in.
Yeah, absolutely. And let me also back up. I mean, John the 23rd, extraordinary pope, really extraordinary. Now a canonized saint. Paul the Sixth is he's blessed, or is he already canonized? I'm not sure. I know he's well
canonized.
He's well on his way.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, so we've got all these very saintly popes and brilliant popes. I mean, John the 23rd's courage to call the Second Vatican Council and recognize the prompting of the Holy Spirit to call the council, and all of the changes that resulted from that. We've really lived in remarkable times, and so tell me your question again about.
Oh yeah, just you got any comments on just how that the recent history of the papacy within our lifetimes really has just evolved?
Yeah, it really has. And John the 23rd, Paul the Sixth, they put into really started changing the papacy to less of a monarch, you could say, to more of a global universal pastor. And so John Paul I was actually the one to do away with the chair where they carry the Pope through the square. He did away with that. He also did away with the tiara. The Pope used to wear a tiara. Paul VI wore it. I don't think John Paul I ever wore it. John Paul II never wore it. A lot of that stuff kind of has been stripped away, and I think what we see in Francis is a little more stripping away, and I know that makes a lot of people uncomfortable because there's tradition attached to those things, and whether it's right or not, history will be the judge of that. But yeah, the papacy continues to evolve, continues to change. There are certain things that certainly are staying the same. It's not like it's being changed from something that's unrecognizable. But I think Francis is trying to introduce a lot more simplicity into the church and the papacy, and so yeah, it continues to change.
Awesome.
Yeah, I appreciate all this discussion. Not that we need to get into my master's thesis, but it covers the different popes and comparisons, and also the whole notion of the spiritual accompaniment that Pope Francis has made such a pronounced thing within his pontificate. The spiritual accompaniment and mercy. And I know that John Paul and Benedict both had such there's such an outreach to marginalized people. And so that's really what my focus is. And so it's great to talk about these topics that it's all coming together. Even though they're different, they all had somewhat of a focus on it. Even though they might not have called it spiritual accompaniment, but it certainly is the mercy of Jesus Christ that they're displaying.
Yeah, and one thing we need to remember too is that both John Paul and Pope Benedict were formed in an era, the Second World War, in that era, and then they came together in such a beautiful way. Pope Benedict, as Cardinal Ratzinger, was created a cardinal in 1977, just a year prior to Karol Wojtyła becoming John Paul II. They actually met for the first time at the conclave that elected John Paul I, and they really hit it off. Because John Paul II at heart is a philosopher, and Benedict at heart is a theologian, and it's like, if you put these two great brains together, what could you accomplish, right? And I say this very clearly in my book, that John Paul II's papacy would not have been what it was, not even close, had it not been for Ratzinger walking beside him. So when John Paul was elected, he asked Ratzinger, who is Cardinal Archbishop of Munich, to come and work for him at the Vatican. But he had only been Archbishop for a year. And he was like, I can't leave my people. I mean, this is a brand new assignment for me. But John Paul kept asking, kept asking. And then in 1982, I guess that would be 5 years into his tenure as Archbishop of Munich, he finally acceded to the request and became prefect for the Congregation of the Doctrine of the Faith, and walked with John Paul II from 1982 all the way through to his death in 2005. And then, lo and behold, the cardinals of the church said, "We want you to lead the universal church." And he accepted. He had asked John Paul II several times, twice at least publicly, that were made public, if he could resign and go back to teaching, go back to just study instead of working at the Vatican. And John Paul would say, "Just a little longer, just a little longer." And then, lo and behold, he becomes Benedict XVI, and in a sense, kind of completed that era of what John Paul had begun in unpacking the Second Vatican Council, in giving us beautiful teachings like theology of the body, a better understanding of the human person, which, like I said, is really key to understanding John Paul II's entire pontificate, is the uniqueness of each individual human person.
Thank you so much. And on that topic, I appreciate the knowledge, and you really have, I think, whet all of our appetite to learn more. So I just invite people to buy 100 Ways John Paul II Changed the World from Amazon, Kindle, or as you said, I think it's on your website too.
Our Sunday Visitor. It's on my website. If you want an autographed copy, go to my website, booksbypatrick.com. Click on the book and you'll see a link there to purchase it, and I'll send you an autographed copy.
Oh, that's awesome. Now, here we are, just weeks away from our upcoming election. We never talk about candidates or promote any parties, but we're talking so much about pro-life. And I know that John Paul II, that was at really the heart of who he was. And as Bill said, with the human person, and acknowledgement of that each life has value, no matter how young or old. Wondered if you could speak about that, because we've been hearing a lot in the news about, sometimes within our church, there's some confusion about that. Wondered if you could share.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So first thing that came to mind is that it's very clear in the teaching of the church, teaching of John Paul II, that human beings are the only creatures God made for himself. All the other creatures were made for man. And we have a unique soul that is destined for eternal life, whether in heaven or in hell. Ultimate destination is up to you. And whether that life is snuffed out before it has a chance to be born or lives to be 110 years old, that soul exists and will have an eternal destiny. So that needs to be kept in mind. John Paul said this. I'll just give you a quote. It's from a letter he sent to the Secretary General of the United Nations Conference on Population and Development in 1994. He said, "Abortion, which destroys existing human life, is a heinous evil, and it is never an acceptable method of family planning." He also said, and let me just jump ahead to our day. The U.S. bishops wrote this in their faithful citizenship document. They said, "The threat of abortion remains our preeminent priority." And that's very important to remember, that there's sometimes this argument that abortion is one issue of many. We have the poor, we have the economy, we have unemployment, we have immigration. Those are all very important issues. Make no mistake about it. But the bishops teach this: the threat of abortion remains our preeminent priority, because it directly attacks life itself, because it takes place within the sanctuary of the family, and because of the number of lives destroyed. So, there is a hierarchy of issues when it comes to people of faith. And I think the founders of our country also understood that, because they said that we have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And they put them in that order for a reason, because without the right to life, then what good is what good are the other two? What good is liberty or the pursuit of happiness or property rights if your right to life is not guaranteed? So, and that's why slavery was such. Most of the founders found it abhorrent, even though some of them owned slaves, but most of them were very anti-slavery, and I think they wrote the Constitution and the Bill of Rights because they wanted to influence the culture to get rid of slavery. So, and in a sense, abortion is kind of that issue of our day that we need to look back to our founding. We need to look to our faith to understand that life is the preeminent issue. And we're not single issue voters, but we are primary issue voters, right? Because if a child doesn't have a right to life, then what we're saying is that some life is worth protecting and some life isn't. It's very subjective. So maybe one day the government, the laws will say that your life isn't worth protecting, just the way the unborn's life isn't protecting. Senior citizens are costing way too much money to protect their lives and to give them health care. So their lives are no longer protected. It's either all life is valuable and worth protecting under law, or none of it is.
It's so true. It's so true, and it really is a staple of our faith. It is. This is a staple of our faith, and if we can remember too that the gospel of life was told to us and given to us by Christ Himself too. Like this is not something that we just dream up, that Christians dream up, or the Catholics have said, oh, we're going to oppose abortion because it's good for our politics, it's good for our that's not what we're doing. I think
no question, and this shouldn't be a political issue. It should be it's a human rights issue. Ultimately, it is the human rights issue of our day, when 1,000 children a day are being slaughtered in our country alone. And we're silent about it. We can't be silent about it because our silence means that we accept it, and we can't accept it. It's unacceptable.
Thank you so much for you sharing all this with us, because there could be some people who are listening who are literally on the fence. And as I said at the beginning of this little conversation here, that we don't promote the political parties or the candidates, but we can talk about what the church teachings are. So if somebody's on the fence and they're listening right now, would you have any words to say to them?
Yeah, it's really incumbent upon each voter to analyze the issues and to look at where the candidates stand on protecting innocent human life. Let me give you another quote from John Paul II. He said, "Laws which legitimize the killing of innocent human beings through abortion or euthanasia are in complete opposition to the inviolable right to life proper to each individual. They thus deny the equality of everyone before the law." So John Paul is saying there is that if there are laws that are authorizing euthanasia or abortion, that none of us are equal under the law, because the science is very clear. Human life begins at conception. That chapter is closed. Now, the chapter that's open is whether that life is worth protecting or not, and we have to decide whether or not it is. But if we are saying that life is not worth protecting up until the moment of birth, then we are saying in a sense that some life is worth protecting, some human life is not worth protecting. And we get to be the judge of who lives and who dies. And you extrapolate it to that, then who is that judge of who lives and who dies? Is it the government? Is it the voters? But we as Christians need to be very clear that every human life, from its very beginning, conception, to natural death, is worth protecting. And my father passed away 3 years ago. And one of the things that I learned too is that, it's not just protecting life up until the moment of death. I mean, the human life and the human body is valuable, and it's protected and it's guarded even under law after a person dies. You can't just go dig up a corpse in a graveyard. That's a human body, and it's protected under law. So human life is valuable, and we know it. It's in our founding documents. It's in our laws. But when some life is not protected, we need to examine that and think about that, and ask ourselves whether we find that problematic. I, for one, do. I find it highly problematic, and that's the reason that I'm in the work that I'm doing here at the Warrenton Pregnancy Center. That all human life is worth protecting. The mother's life is worth protecting. Her soul is worth protecting, and so we walk with these mothers and we help them make good choices. And even if we don't, we're there for them because they're valuable. They're valuable because they're created in the image and likeness of God, same as their children, born and unborn.
Yeah, and I think one of the big things that you highlighted in there too is that, your dignity is not dependent upon your actions in life.
Right.
I mean that's one of the biggest things that I think we all struggle with, especially in our culture today, as we try and educate our children and we talk about things. We have this mentality of, well, once you've messed up, you've messed up. No.
Mm-hmm,
God's
mm-hmm.
mercy is there at every turn. God's mercy is there at every turn. And that enables us to say that no matter what you've done, no matter whether you've had an abortion or you haven't had an abortion, you have a fundamental dignity, regardless of your actions. Now, of course, your actions can determine your eternal destination, but you still have a dignity and worth. And up until your last breath, you get to decide where you will spend eternity.
Absolutely. And I would encourage people to watch two movies. One is called Unplanned. It's the true story of my friend, Abby Johnson, and her journey from managing a Planned Parenthood center to becoming one of the most powerful pro-life activists in the country, in the world. She had 2 abortions, one chemical abortion and one surgical abortion prior to her conversion. And I always find that people who have committed great sin and been forgiven are the best spokespeople for the movement, because they've been there, they've been on that side, and they know how dark and evil it is. Also encourage people to watch the movie Bella. It's a fictional story, but it's really a compilation story of so many women who have contemplated abortion and either chosen or not chosen, but the implications of that choice and what that does to families and to children is really remarkable. There's also, a short film called Crescendo, made by my friend Jason Jones. You can watch it on YouTube. Just put in Crescendo movie. It's about 15 minutes. It's the story of, now correct me if I'm wrong, it's Ludwig van Beethoven. Mm-hmm. His mother almost aborted him. So it tells her story of why she was contemplating abortion and how she came to choose life. And the result of that is remarkable. Again, a life-changing experience, allowing this child to live and giving us such beautiful music that it will live forever in our culture. So encourage people to watch those films because they're powerful. They really speak to the truth of abortion and what it is and the power of choosing life.
Amen. Amen. Thank you so much. This is a great podcast, and I would encourage people to listen to it again because it's really packed full with a lot of great information about you, about the popes, about your writing, about the Warrenton Pregnancy Center. So again, they can go to booksbypatrick.com. And then the other website is catholicpublicist.com.
Yeah, and even more important about the center, WPCpartners.org.
Yes.
Yes. Amen.
And folks, we'll stick them down in the show notes of the podcast. So if you're looking for that, just head right down to the description on the podcast, and you'll be able to click on those links and be able to get to all Patrick's different websites. So Patrick, can't thank you enough for coming on again and being with us and just sharing time and so many great stories, so much great wisdom, and we certainly wish you the best in all your efforts. And we'll certainly have you back on again when as you write the next book. So it's great.
I'd enjoy that. It's been fun, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Patrick.
Yes, folks, I want to remind you real quick as we are wrapping up today's program to head over to our website, patchworkheart.org, and we have a Fearless Scriptural Rosary. As we're encountering all of these different times that we are encountering with the unrest in our society, with the upcoming election, with all of the different things that are happening in our world, sometimes we encounter fear. And so what we've done is paired the different scripture passages that say, "Be not afraid, fear not," with the rosary. And it's available on our website for free. All you got to do is head over to patchworkheart.org. Up will pop a splash screen, put your email in, and you'll be able to get a return email from us that enables you to download a free PDF. So please check that out, and we hope that you will reach out to us in the many different ways that we also minister. So again, it's patchworkheart.org and andesantis.com as well for all of Anne's great work that she's doing. Anne, you want to mention who's coming up this week on Journeys in Faith for people?
Yes, for Journeys in Faith, I'm very excited. This Friday night, we have Emily K. Whiting. She is a Catholic author and speaker. So that'll be 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time this Friday night on Fiat Ministry Network, and also on the podcast at Patchwork Heart Ministry on YouTube. Please do subscribe.
Awesome. Well, folks, thank you so much for being with us. And until next time, from all of us here at Patchwork Heart Ministry, the St. Raymond Nonatus Foundation, and Fiat Ministry Network, keep beating to your Catholic hearts and sowing hope into broken hearts. I'm Bill Snyder. Have a great rest of your day. Thanks for listening to this episode of Sowing Hope on Patchwork Heart Radio. For more information about this podcast and our ministries, visit our websites, patchworkheart.org and andesantis.com. You can also follow and interact with us on Twitter at PWH Ministry or Anne DeSantis 2.